Peace 107.5 FM, the air of success.
We are in the 5 o'clock hour, and if it's 5 o'clock, it's hard copy. Hard Copy is a presentation of the McKinney Media Group. Copyrights 2015, all rights reserved. Views and statements and opinions of guests expressed on this show does not necessarily reflect the views of the host, sponsors, or operators of this radio station. No part of this program may be copied or reproduced in full or in part without the express written consent of the producers, the McKinney Media Group. This is Hard Copy on the McKinney Broadcasting Radio Network. Hard Copy, as you know, seeks to lay out the facts in simple fashion for the inclusion of all Bahamians and Bahamians at heart. The focus every day to move forthright in our manner to build a progressive and developing country. Our desire is for a Bahamas with a competent, skillful, and productive workforce. We want a country that can feed and sustain itself. We want a country with a brilliant, visionary action plan that's ready to embrace a future of hope and prosperity. We encourage like-minded Bahamians just like you to participate with intelligent and honest contributions. After all, friends, we do have a country to build. We've got jobs and industry to create. We've got a people to inspire and empower, and generations of born and unborn Bahamians we the people must protect and plan for. And if not you, then who? If not now, then when? And today on the show, Bahama, court, delays, problems, etc. This is Hard Copy.
Great news. We have a chance to experience the magic of the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, courtesy of Visa.
That's great, but did you really need another bathing suit?
I'm just showing my support for the swimming event.
And the skirt?
For the tennis, babe.
So these high heel shoes must be for track and field then?
Of course not. They're for the nightlife. We're going to Rio, aren't we?
It's easy. Get approved for a Visa RBC credit card or use your existing Visa RBC credit or debit card for a chance to win. Visa, worldwide sponsor of the Olympic Games. Call or visit any RBC branch for more info.
Over the decades, Bahamians have trusted New Oriental Cleaners because New Oriental Cleaners provides quality common care, friendly service, and satisfied customers. Guaranteed. With more than 50 years of experience, we are here for you. Stop in at any of our 9 locations throughout Nassau. New Oriental Cleaners, keeping you looking good is our pride and joy. New Oriental Cleaners. Like us on Facebook and be the first to know about many promotions.
Commonwealth Bank auto loans are as hassle-free and easy as it gets. It's just that simple.
With on-the-spot dealer reps to approve and help you through the process, you're right, it really is just that simple.
With the many options available, like insurance financing, low down payments, and easy monthly payments, Commonwealth Bank had all the flexibility I needed in an auto loan.
Thanks, CB. Thanks, CB, for making it quick and easy.
Commonwealth Bank, leader in personal banking services.
Executive Printers. We're professionals. At Executive Printers, we do not participate in trash talk. We concern ourselves with the accuracy and security of your laser check. That is why we put 15, yes, 15 securities on your laser checks. This is not trash. This is fact. It makes fraud almost impossible. Call us today at Executive Printers at 393-5011 or email us at sales@epbahamas.com. That's sales@epbahamas.com. Executive Printers. Laser checks. We do them right.
Welcome to Sunburst Super Summer Sale, where you buy 5 and get 1 free. That's right, when you buy 5 gallons of Sunburst Superior Quality Paint, you get 1 gallon of Fresh Look Wall Paint absolutely free. And Sunburst prices start at $16.95 per gallon for top quality wall paint and $38.95 per gallon for super glossy enamel wood paint. In addition, Sunburst will be raffling 3 32-inch flat screen TVs and 3 washing machines to lucky customers. So hurry on down to Sunburst Paints on Howard Road. Sunburst, where every gallon is guaranteed.
Commonwealth Bank has always been where Bahamians go for auto loans.
And it just keeps getting better. Now with on-site approval available, even more flexibility and hassle-free loan applications.
That's what I like. Bahamians approving Bahamians because they don't answer to anyone but themselves.
Thanks, CB. Thanks, CB, for making it quick and easy.
Commonwealth Bank, leader in personal banking services.
The best insurance in town is Advantage Insurance on Collins Avenue. They are simply the best because they provide easy, affordable insurance rates for home, car, business, or whatever is valuable or important to you. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue, is the fastest, most progressive insurance company in the Bahamas because they really take care of you by making insurance totally affordable. Call them now at 356-0285 or 6, or email them at info@advantagebahamas.com.
Steve McKinney, a show off the chain.
I feel Mr. McKinney is excellent, he's professional in his field, and he takes care of all issues.
I listen to Hard Copy. I like to hear various viewpoints, and it helps.
Hard Copy is my show. Steve McKinney is my man.
It is Monday, the 20th day of the month of July 2015, as you battle the congested city streets. In drive-home traffic, buckle up for safety here in the capital especially. We have sun and cloud this afternoon on the outlook on the drive. 88 degrees right now in the nation's capital. There's a low expected of 79 tonight, some low, 100% chance of rain in the 6 o'clock hour is what the weatherman is saying. Let's see. Thank you so much for joining us on the drive home. I'm Steve McKinney. This is Hard Copy. We're brought to you today by the National Art Gallery, Commonwealth Bail Bonds, the Bank of the Bahamas, the Bank of Solutions, BTC Every Day, new Samsung's S6. SuperValue, the All Bahamian Supermarkets, the McKinney Media Group for effective PR concepts and advertisement. RBC Visa, get it now. Ministry of Tourism, Junkanoo Summer Festival every Saturday. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue. New Oriental, Dry Cleaners. 9 locations to better serve you. They keep you looking good. Grace Academy, #1, Chester's Clothes. Ron's Electric Motors. Ron Frazier can fix anything. Prime Immigration Services. Sky Bahamas, professionals in every way, every day. Super Wash, 11 locations open 24/7. Seafowl, Canadian Financial Advisors Limited. Sunburst Paints. Leslie is giving away much Sunburst Paints these days. We'll check it out. Commonwealth Bank, Summer Madness. Also, Executive Printers, Henry F. Store, the Light People on Mackey Street, and Le Bleu Ultra Pure Drinking Water, the official water of Hard Copy. You can call Hard Copy today at 325-0235 or 6. And I'll tell you what, the BlackBerry today is 376-9234. You can follow us on the World Wide Web at peace1075.com. The cable top box is always there for you, 970. And there's TuneIn Radio. Any Android, you can get us on any Android, any iPad, iPhone, anywhere in the entire world. You'll get us Hard Copy right there on the TuneIn Radio. Follow us on Facebook, Hard Copy, and of course, Twitter. Hard Copy Bahamas is how you can get us. And we'll be delighted to have a conversation with you today. You know, the big talk around town continues to be this whole bit about Bahama and the government of the Bahamas and what we may do, what we may not do. We went to court today, and of course a lot of legal wrangling beginning to unravel in the courts. First and foremost, there are some who believe that we really shouldn't be in court trying to pursue this winding up exercise. They don't believe that. There are experts who are saying, listen, man, don't do it. Of course, the Prime Minister made an announcement last week, Thursday, on national television that that's what's going to be pursued, and that basically is what is happening. Of course, they went back to court today to deal with the continuation of this hearing for our courts to recognize the rulings of this U.S. court that deals with the bankruptcy, Chapter 11, and as a result of it, there are some who believe that that should be the way to go. In fact, many of the lawyers submitted today in court that that is what they're looking at. Let us do that, is what they're saying. so that monies can flow from the $80 million in this particular fund that Mr. Ismailian and the Bahama developers will have access to pay their bills, to get some things moving, et cetera, et cetera. And while that's going on, there are others who believe that maybe we in the Bahamas, our nation's leader, Prime Minister Christie, may have moved too quickly. And they believe that because of all this talk now, that there is continuation of the negotiations in Beijing. The three main players, of course, being the developers, Bahama, the construction company, China Construction, and, of course, the lenders, Exim Bank, which is also owned by the Chinese government. So what we have here is a group that must negotiate in the best interests of this project continuing and being developed and brought to a completion, a successful completion here in the Bahamas. Ismailian believes that he's being pushed out of the business. As a developer, he believes that's what this wind-up process is. He believes that that's what the Christie government wants. He is fighting against that. He is saying on one side of his mouth that he wants to continue negotiating. On the other side, he is saying that he wants the bankruptcy thing to be endorsed by the Bahamian courts. And on the other side, he's stickling the Chinese construction company and the government of the Bahamas as people who are doing some funny things, wanting to play out their own agendas while they pretend to negotiate. He says they may have some hidden agenda. So it seems like the whole thing is all confusing, confuddled, and certainly full of intrigue, to say the least. And, of course, today on the show, we're going to talk about that and other issues of the state, because while everybody is believing, in the government that is, that all of our eggs are in one basket and we just got to bring this to fruition and then we'll be okay, there are others of us who believe that there are so many other things that need to be addressed and considered and dealt with in an urgent manner that we just can't afford to be stuck on this particular topic the way that many others are stuck on it. We believe that it will unfold and unravel the way it's supposed to in God's good time. We believe that. And, you know, we also believe that if we just would let things fall in place, it will be just okay. But, of course, there's an anxious period among our leaders. There's an anxious moment as well among those developers. The minister responsible for legal affairs today was in the newspapers, kind of like, you know, adding fuel to the fire to get Ismailian to move quickly. He says, look, the door is closing on you. We've already filed for what we have filed for as far as the winding up is concerned. And you got a short window to get it done, or you will find yourself dealing with something that you really don't want to deal with, which is the winding up and, of course, having a provisional liquidator appointed by the courts to deal with the matter, and no inclusion of Mr. Ismailian as a developer, which some people believe is kind of hard to accept. Now, how do you go and do something like that, government of the Bahamas? How do you do something like that? And the man, Mr. Ismailian, is the one who knows the ins and outs of the plans for the development of Bahama. How do you exclude the developer? Well, there are many things that we as laypersons do not know. But one thing that we do know, we ought to sit back and watch the big boys play this game, because this is now what is called a lawyer's paradise. This is an encore for all lawyers. Lawyers who are worth their salt will make some money, and certainly if monies are being made, why should this thing not be protracted? If you can do the math, if you make $1 a day for 365 days a year, you'll make $365. Why cut it into 2 days and only make $2? That's how I see it. That's just from the streets. Now, we're going to deal today with one who is a lawyer and who has been a friend and a colleague and a co-host on this show. His name is John Bostwick. John is with me this afternoon because there are so many things to be said, so many angles to look at, and so many things for us to concentrate on. As a country, we are in a precarious position. It doesn't look pretty, but we are playing our cards the way we believe under our laws we should be playing it. we are now utilizing an option that we had open to us from day one. And that option was to go to our courts and begin winding up procedures. Is that what we are now doing? John, good afternoon. How are you?
Steve, thank you yet again for having me here with you.
Absolutely.
Always happy to answer your call. I wish I had listened this week to the last word. I am told by more than one that you included
yes, I included
myself and Wayne at the round table.
Yes, I did that with a sound bite, and of course at that time a lot of people, when they heard it, they were of like mind that maybe they're posturing, maybe they're playing a game of, tea-tie-toe, or it's tactical. Everything that's happening is for tactical purposes in this game of intrigue to get the players back at the table as far as the Prime Minister is concerned. Many people, John, believes that the Prime Minister made this checker move or this chess move on the board to initiate the winding up process so that Ms. Meridian could catch himself and get back to the tables. But Ms. Meridian says, what are you talking about? I never left the table. He says, as we speak, we're still at the negotiating table. So there was no such thing as the negotiations breaking down, closing down, or becoming stale, as was reported by the Attorney General, Allison Maynard Gibson, upon her return, that they came back home and they had not reached an agreement. Now, John, I want to start out by asking you a couple of serious questions here. First and foremost, we had a 10-member delegation that went to China, Beijing, a week ago. Could it be that the reason why we got the news that we got is because they went to the table to negotiate with a limited time self-imposed based upon purchase of ticket? Do you get me? Self-imposed based upon purchase of ticket. In other words, while you could purchase a ticket to go to Beijing, China, open end, come back when you feel like, when the negotiations are concluded, apparently we may have bought some tickets, and I'm just putting this out there, we may have bought some tickets that says, leave on Tuesday, return on Thursday. Do you get me? In other words, a round-trip ticket that's already completed at this the date that we leave in, this the date we're coming back, and thus that may put a little strain on the negotiations, not with an open mind or with an open ticket, but because you got to come back at a certain time, then you would have left the negotiating tables. I know that sounds trite. I know that sounds frivolous. I know it does. But consider it for a second.
Steve, it might sound trite, but again, I would say it has some merit. To my understanding, we have a very well-appointed mission in China, an incredibly well-appointed mission in China that could host our diplomats when they travel. So one would think that you could stay indefinitely. As to the import of this project to the Bahamas, as we know it today, we have all types of reports, as you say, and I don't want to segue from your question, and I'm sure over this 2 hours we're going to talk about how important Bahama is to the Bahamas as we know it today, not just regarding hundreds of millions owed to local creditors who themselves are the backbone of our economy.
Absolutely.
And that's one major statement. The employees, thousands of persons, okay, that's another major statement. And then add on to that commitments that we made to regulators, credit agencies with regard to the revenue that was going to be earned. So three major ways, each of which is a knockout blow. It's like a knockout combination, okay? Any one of them that could knock you out, okay? So to say that, and I make that mention to say that this is something of national import to the point that you would think that there is no amount of time that could be set aside for persons to come to a determination with regards to what is clearly going wrong with Bahama. To me, it seems that maybe I'm just overly nationalistic, and yes, we are a small little country. But at the end of the day, there were two potential venues for this meeting, China and/or Nassau. It would seem to me that the government haven't gone there armed with this secondary position, and I'm just going by what is reported in the press, that the governor, as you say, went there with two positions. See a deal happen, or come home and find file winding up. But they had that in the mind before sitting at the table. It would seem to me that in this game of extreme brinksmanship, I think it's beyond posturing. Okay, and as I said at the end of the session on Friday, that okay, there's posturing, and then there's posturing to the point of a Cold War. What we've seen is the declaration of a Cold War, and the building up of arms, and even the firing of some warning shots, some flybys, some low, heavily armed flybys,
shot across the bow.
Okay,
everything,
and letting you know that you're well within range. So, and with that, building up for a Cold War takes the pledge of resources, of money, of personnel, of troops, and like I say, the people caught in the middle, the people of the Bahamas, just like in every Cold War, the Russian people used to be on bread lines at the height of the Cold War. It's world number 2 superpower, but what did it cost them? Okay, so what is this going to cost the people of the Bahamas?
We mustn't lose sight of that, because we're looking at the people.
Most definitely.
First line of victims.
The people, the thousands of people who left high-paying jobs, who took the humiliation of cleaning up the streets and the parks, being paid by urban renewal, all in hope, who march in the street all in hope and promises. These are executives, the people, who are not able to go back to their high-paying jobs, who are not able to maintain their mortgages, who cannot keep their kids in school, the people, okay? The persons who are waiting for payment, the major supply agencies, major food supply agencies, major construction, electrical, plumbing supply agencies, waiting for hundreds of thousands of dollars, government agencies waiting for hundreds of thousands of dollars. When you see that list that the government put in the paper as to why they consider themselves the second largest creditor, is horrifying, and not all of it is concessionary. You know, so you talk about $1 billion+ in concessions. I would like them to break that down too, by the way. But the fact that they owe national insurance, they owe BEC, that's not concessionary. Okay, and why should they be able to? I know persons leading people in this community, and I agree with it to some extent, who've been dragged before the courts for national insurance and charged and put in handcuffs.
No question about it.
I know small businessmen who've been jailed recently for owing national insurance $1,500. Okay, put in jail. Seriously, by the state.
But all these millions that are owed, this was all, I suppose, John Bostwick, in wishful hope for the actual success of Bahama and then get paid later on, because look at it now, a total of 58.8 something millions of dollars owed by Bahama to the government of the Bahamas. See, this begs a couple of questions, and I know that you were in the middle of your thought process, but I have to inject this. I mean, if they owe all this money, here we are as a country without the money, paying the bills of the workers, which I'm sure we don't have to, we'd allow for this thing to come through from the U.S. court. But still, we are a sovereign nation, so we must act like it. So we're paying a hefty bill, $7.5 million in these salaries for Bahamian workers. And then they owe all this money, and then we owe them, I suppose, $21 million that they say that this money's going to come from, that they're paying. It's just a lot of confusion that's beginning to happen. I believe, John Bostwick, with a winding up, that people will get to see almost a forensic study by the courts, even though this may not have been the intent. This was not the ambition, but certainly we cannot do anything unless we know what is what. And so you start to see these numbers come out. I mean, while this winding up is beginning to happen, provisional, let me put that there. Not that I'm quite sure what that means, you know. See, when I say that, I'm saying this. We hear this provisional winding up, and then we understand it's really a legitimate winding up that's actually happening, and this cannot be a bluff. because it's to be appointed by the courts. These are things that I want you to address for our regular, everyday, local people who are trying to understand this high-stakes scheme among those who are rich and famous, those who are the money boys, and those who, in fact, got all kind of agendas in looking at the money side of this whole project.
You know, Steve, speaking to this is kind of difficult because the information that is coming is so incredibly varied and so drastically, almost 180 degrees in difference. And, when you talk about winding up, and the government's claiming that they are owed some $53-odd million, and as a creditor, and this is their grounds for winding up, and they list all these departments. Well, depending on who and what you believe, just on one stage payment alone, if I get it correct, Bahamas is claiming that they are owed by the government of the Bahamas some $51 million. They are owed another $35-odd million with regard to road commitments. If that's true, that's $86 million that they're owed, that they're claiming that they're owed by the government of the Bahamas. So you see, when I hear that the government is petitioning for winding up, and it might be possible for Bahamas attorneys to show legitimately that they are owed more than that by the government, maybe the government's petition might not be successful. So
that's interesting.
We are all presuming. And I think based on the very aggressive, confident way in which it's being presented by the government, yet again, and I think the government must present this from a position of confidence, okay, that they are, as creditor, they have petitioned the local courts to wind up, and that upon winding up, what are they seeking? They're seeking the appointment of a provisional. To say provisional, the word means exactly what it means, that the liquidator would be appointed subject to certain provisions, subject to certain mandates, to not necessarily just to satiate creditors and give whatever remainder to shareholders, but to satiate creditors via certain objectives that are stated and approved by the court. And the suggestion by the government in this is that objective is to achieve the functioning operation, successful opening and operation of the hotel.
Because it's supposed to provide for this restructuring more so caretaker manager.
Exactly.
But see, that has with the exclusion of Ismaridian, who is the developer.
Well, everybody keeps saying that is with the exclusion of Ismaridian.
Isn't that what the Prime Minister said?
But it doesn't necessarily have to be, okay? And so again, this conversation is very aggressive rhetoric, and you'll see amongst the conversation that is reported today in the press is that the Bahamas/Ismaridian side of things is asking for the government to back off of the aggressive rhetoric.
Right.
And when you look at some of the things that the Ismaridian side has put in writing, and I always say, all of the innuendo and this report, that report is one thing, but when you see statements on government letterhead or statements made by the government's counsel on their feet in court on behalf of the government, or statements made by the Attorney General to reporters on a live talk show, these are the type of things I think you should pay attention to. Bahama has produced, I think, 4 statements on their letterhead stating various things. But amongst them, apart from saying we're still at the table in China, they said very clearly, and this is to address some of the things that you have opened with, that they are prepared to stay the bankruptcy proceedings in Delaware. They say that.
Now they're saying that.
They say that in writing. They said that in writing last week, that they are prepared to stay, that they are more than prepared to apply for a stay in the action in Delaware, pending the outcome of negotiations.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they had also said at those same negotiations, reportedly in media again, that they weren't prepared to take that off the table. This whole bit about the ruling, the actual bankruptcy Chapter 11 that has been applied for in Delaware, that they weren't prepared to do that. That was one of the things I understand.
Well,
that the bank had wanted them to do, remove that, and also 1 or 2 other things, which was one was that the Bahama people would undertake to offer personal, I suppose, a backing on the $300 million that he had been asking for, and then the numbers went to $600 million.
Well, 300 to 600. See, Steve, what I'm not doing is speaking to the hearsay. I'm speaking to what, and again, there might be, and I know doubtedly they're very well advised, internal and external, and I'm not speaking to the hearsay of it all. I'm speaking to what they put on their letterhead.
All right.
Okay.
So this is what he is saying now.
He's put on his letterhead that they're prepared to stay the action, that they got $900 million in it, that they're prepared for another $80 million from them, plus another another $98 million, almost $100 million. That's what's in writing. Okay? So, and again, I don't speak for any party in this, but that the government needs to posture or needs to take a firm position. And this is what I wanted to say to finish my train of thought. And you asked me, did the government go and come back too soon? It seemed to me that if the government was prepared to take such a hardline course of action, i.e. come back to the Bahamas and apply for winding up of all 14 of the companies, first thing we have to state, if the first thing the government's hardline is to ignore Delaware, forget Delaware. We're not concerned about what's going on in Delaware or the UK for the time being. That's a big move by the government. Okay? Number two, we're going to go back to the Supreme Court and apply to wind you up if you don't come to an agreement. Number three, we're going to exercise the caveat and take back the public land. If the government, now the government stated that they went to China as a mediator, but if they went there as a mediator, as a government, and preferably with those three big sticks, okay, I would have demanded that they come here. I would have sent the message in writing that if you don't fail to be here in 48 hours, and if you don't fail to come to a conclusion inside of the next 10 working days, this is the course of the action the government of the Bahamas is going to take.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold it right there, John. There are others who are in business, big business in the Bahamas, who act as board members, I suppose, of Bahama. I speak in particular of Denisio de Aguilar, who is today in the business section, talking something along the lines that the government would have acted kind of quickly, prematurely, if you will. He was thinking that the government ought to have waited until today, the 20th day of July, the day that they go back to court to deal with this whole hearing about the Delaware matter, that if they had waited for today, it would have been appropriate by this time to know where they were and to then proceed with filing for the winding up petition. So he seems to keep saying that, which tells me that there's something in that. That the other inference would be that that Christie and his team of advisors acted hastily, too quickly on this whole particular matter. And that could have been a tactical move, he says. Of course, Wayne Monroe, Queen's counselor, who was here last Friday, said he thinks that this is all a bit of, what he called it?
Posturing.
Posturing. So this is basically along the lines that people see it as the Giants playing the game, and they're wanting something to happen fast, very quick, because there's no question that Christie and his government, on behalf of the Bahamian people, and perhaps rightly so, are jonesing for a quick start, are hoping and wishing and praying with all their might that we can get this project underway or to be continued, to resume. And I don't know if that's emotional, as another attorney, Paul Moss, called it, that we are working with this thing from an emotive point of view, that we are losing our head on what is fact and law as it relates to this particular case. What say you?
No, I don't think. I think there's a certain level of urgency, and I don't think that urgency is motivated by emotion. And I can understand where the emotion comes, because people's legacies are at stake. But beyond people's legacies, there are thousands of Bahamian lives at stake. And that can get you to react in a way that persons might define as emotional. But I think that's just how serious a matter it is. It's not a joke. It's a serious, serious situation, and it has to be addressed and addressed now. Beyond that, as the Attorney General says, and as I said, last time we were here. Look, the world's watching, you know. The rating agencies are watching. They want to see, they need to be convinced that the Bahamian government is taking this thing so deathly serious and that they are doing everything within their power legally to address it and to bring it to a head and to get it completed. Not laissez-faire and you see what happened, and they are proactively engaging themselves in this process and trying to push it.
Yeah, but is there anything they really can do? Let's think, all
Well,
things
but you see,
considered.
all
What can
things
they really do except to wait for the courts?
All things considered, Steve, in this game of brinksmanship, legal brinksmanship and posturing, one of the things you do when you really have a strong hand is you flash it. You know, when you're playing dominoes and you know you got your hand, you turn them cards, rest them on the table. So you all may as well shuffle again. This hand over. If you're really good in dominoes, you'll take the key and put it in the fella pocket across the table. Put it in your pocket and I can tell you when. This hand over. A good domino player pick up his hand and look at it.
And he requests, he see.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay? And you take the key out, put it on the table and spin it.
But who are you supposing is the great domino player here?
Well, they don't know it, but the government is. Like I told you, the domino has 3 pieces. And if you're playing pluck or whisk, they got the deuce of diamonds, the deuce of spades, and the ace in their hand. And they have the authority, like Wayne said, the authority of a sovereign government. You know, and the ability to take a position of hardline leadership. Look, come to the table. I'm not going to, before I do this, I rather show you what is going to happen. Because I don't necessarily want to do this. I don't want to bog this down. I don't want to tie it. In fact, what I'm telling you is I'm not going to allow you to bog this down. This deal is going to happen with or without any of you. Because ultimately, I have the asset. I'll bring new players to the table to finish it up without any of you.
That's the prerogative of the government of the Bahamas on behalf of the Bahamian people.
On behalf of the Bahamian people, it's here in the Bahamas. That's what I keep saying. And they have these 3 hammers. Like Wayne says, you know, hold a hammer over your head. Okay, somebody's holding a mallet. And the biggest mallet, I would suggest, is the ability to reclaim the public land. And then winding up. Okay? Whether the winding up has full merit, maybe there's an argument to be had over that, and that could get things all tied up and messy. Okay? But the ability to reclaim the public land, that's a serious issue. That's a very serious issue. And the talk about appointing a provisional liquidator. Look, come to the table. Come to the table, come to the table now. The government of the Bahamas will have to act in the sovereign interest of the people of the Bahamas. And come to the table in the Bahamas, and I'm telling you what we are going to do should this not happen. We are not concerned about Delaware and the UK. I'm telling you that openly. I'm telling you openly that the end result of this will be that we pull back this land. So if you don't come to the Bahamas and agree this, that is where we're going.
So is Marillion, the developers, Bahama, knowing all of this? They seem to be coming around in a way of saying the right things. For instance, what you mentioned earlier, that they are willing to stay this whole matter from Chapter 11 in Delaware and look with great interest and hope that they're going to be able to work out something and continue this project. And I think I saw today somewhere, in one of the news, I read so many things today, but one of the papers was talking about there's a projected plan to see if they can still get this movement by November, get this place open by November of this year, which I thought was very ambitious. All things considered, we don't know how protracted these matters are going to be. And now that the government of the Bahamas, through our Prime Minister, put it on the table for winding up, he can't be bluffing with that. I think he's definitely serious about it. And I think it may be made to get the players back to the table, as we've all been agreeing on. But when? I mean, if Ismaili is saying, but we never left, we're still doing this, we're still doing that, that brings another kind of confusion to the whole matter, as if the government is not on top of what they're supposed to be on top of and don't really know what's going on. And so he doesn't really know, he's at a loss,
you know, as
to why we are not, why we would have filed for the winding up.
You know, Steve, again, conjecture. I read so many stories in the paper today, and reading from paper to paper, even in the same paper, stories that suggested different conclusions.
Yes,
and
this is true.
All right, and you know, there was a storyline, for example, there's all of this coming from Bahama, this conciliatory discussion and the rest. You don't hear, for the rumor on the street, you would think that those buildings need to be condemned for the rumor. But yet in the filings against CCA in the UK, they're only claiming about $30–40 million for defective work. That don't seem like
demolition.
Okay. So you wonder. You see reported in one of the papers today that the construction group is applying in Delaware to get the court to order Bahama to release
their documents,
their computers, their smartphones.
Yeah, right. 152 computers,
and that they
152
were locked out
smartphones.
of the property.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So all right, that don't seem too conciliatory.
No.
To me, and Bahama is saying they need these things because ultimately there might be stuff on them, and they're saying, well, this is going to prejudice our actions. Okay. These don't seem like two parties trying to
working
resolve
anything out. Absolutely.
anything. Okay.
I agree.
But what it then made me think about a little laterally, I said, and this has been on my mind, I said, okay, Bahama has locked out CCA executives from the property for some time now. Well, what about those 4,000 workers? Where are they? Have they been locked off the property too? And if so, for how long? And what are they doing in the meantime? Where are they? Under whose supervision are they?
There's someplace loose in the country.
Well, there's a big question mark, Stephen. See, that's really eating me, you know. And I did say, and I'm going to be honest with you, I said, this is something I got to raise with Steve. Steve in immigration, that's his hard point. Steve, I happen to know, apart from the fact that we waived visa requirements for Chinese citizens, which I think might have its economic benefits, not might, definitely will have its economic benefits. But it also opens us up to 1.6 billion people who can travel here now without visas. We need to think sometimes. I have questioned persons in immigration and in various levels of authority. Apparently, we don't have anybody full-time on staff that is fully conversant or able to read Chinese. Okay, so that even the documentation presented by these individuals is Chinese to us, like you say in the Bahamas. That's a slang for when you can't understand somebody's writing. You say look like Chinese. So the long and the short, we don't know what is on the paper. We don't know what it's saying about the individual, and we've processed or allowed in. We don't even know. Some people say up to 7,500. Some people say between 4,500 and 5,500. We don't know these individuals. We did not photograph them. We did not fingerprint them.
So they could go. They could be anywhere in the interior.
We did not
unaccounted for.
We did not Interpol check them. They've come in the thousands, and we cannot, without a question of a doubt, say exactly where each and every one of them is today. All right. So, you know, I can go further on that, but that crosses into the rumor pool as to some of the identity of these characters. So I won't cross into the rumor pool because those listening know exactly what I'm talking about. And the fact is that we can't have any group of undocumented immigrants in this town and we don't know where they are. And I would like very much for somebody in immigration, Steve, you always make these clarion calls. And like I always say to you, I love to be wrong. But I would love for somebody to call with information from immigration and say categorically that they know the number, that they know where each and every one of them is, and they can say how many came in, total, how many have left to date, total, and who we have here in the Bahamas. I would love to hear it.
You think that's possible? I mean, anything is possible. I don't know if you're going to hear it because when you first raised it on the show, we had been doing some checking, and we're only getting some, I suppose, vague statements from those who are close to sources of ours that Gladstone Road is a very, very interesting place on the island of New Providence. And maybe more answers could be had if immigration officers were to check and see what their manifest says,
you know,
who's here
Steve,
and who's not.
We have so many, and with the greatest respect, systems that are supposed to check and balance society. And too often civil society just points the finger at government, and as we're doing, as I'm doing right now, You know, who's here, what needs to be done. Why isn't it that, and I challenge Steve McKinney, grab his camera team, press card, go down the Glassing Road, and the man asks us. Say, he's the press, we come to see what's going on down here. We want to tour the facility with our cameras and go show the people and ask the people questions. We come to interview. How many of y'all came? How many are here now? Who exactly is here? Where's this man from? What is his name? And we don't have to wait, you know, Steve. And if we keep waiting in this country, God help us.
Wait, break down the wagon. We're going to run to a break. This is Hard Copy. John Bostwick is with me. We're talking a number of things. Let's start out with this Bahama situation. There's nothing much that we can do except really sit and wait and offer opinion and analyze most of what is happening here. You know the details by now as to what's going on. We have to see how this whole thing is going to play out. Right now, the lawyers are in the spotlight as to what's going to happen on the Bahamas, side, as well as on the government's winding up side. And I see there's some level of attack on Allison Maynard Gibson, the Attorney General. There's some people who are making sport, we like to say, sport of her, making sport of her, that kind of a thing. Maybe that will get her provoked enough to say something more. We'll just see. When we come back here this evening, there's more to talk about. This immigration thing is big. Certainly this crime thing is big. And there are many other issues that we have not been paying attention to. So John's here to help to continue to motivate this nation that there are other things that we should be doing now. And we better get to it before we have more than Bahama to talk about from a point of view as to, boy, what we gonna do if it don't come true. This is Hard Copy. Back in a minute.
You're joking, right? I'm not reading that. Who approved this? You want Mr. Roberts mad at me, eh? Really? So you're sure now? Okay then, here goes. This week's specials at Super Value and Quality Supermarket include Sawyer's mayonnaise, a 32-ounce jar, $2.99. Kraft macaroni and cheese, 7 1/4-ounce box, 99 cents. Kellogg's Raisin Bran Crunch cereal, 43 1/3-ounce box, $8.99. Value Time towels, 1 roll, 99 cents. Boneless chicken breast, $2.89 per pound. Too good to believe. That's Super Value and Quality Supermarkets.
At Henry F. Store Electric Company, we supply all your electrical needs for any size project, from residential housing to luxury hotels. We can help you achieve just the right look, from doorbells to chandeliers, table lamps to ceiling fans, wire, conduit, panels, dimmers, switches, plugs, and even tools. And don't forget light bulbs. We have those hard-to-find, energy-saving fluorescent bulbs and more. Henry F. Store Electric, number 135 Matthew Street. Over 50 years of reliability, service, and low prices. We also ship to the Family Islands.
The choices we make can make us, like who we turn to for investment and retirement advice. Choosing CFAL means having a trusted advisor on your side, helping you build wealth and meet your financial goals. We manage pension assets for businesses and offer individual plans to help you design a secure retirement. We can provide brokerage services and comprehensive research support for clients needing a little more investment guidance. CFAL can help you build a portfolio you can be proud of. Visit us at CFAL.com. CFAL sees your future.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the National Art Gallery of the Bahamas, that big yellow building on top of West Hill Street, invites you to visit and see paintings, sculpture, and art. Normally there's an admission fee, but listen here, thanks to the generosity of the Central Bank of the Bahamas, in celebration of the Bahamas' independence, admission is free for all Bahamians and residents for the entire month of July. I bet you didn't bank on that. Bring your mama, papa, grandma, grandpa, aunties, uncles, cousins, friends, brothers and sisters. Make it a treat for the whole family. It's the National Art Gallery of the Bahamas, keeping the faith. Closed on Mondays. Open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sundays from noon until 4 p.m. Be there.
Well, what in the world you got in these suitcases you told in the superwash?
Rachel come home with this cat. It's a pretty cat now. But he ain't getting toilet things down park yet.
So he got on the rug?
On the rug? I wish it was only the rug. Homeboy baptized our couch with some of that territory marking spray what they just use.
Well, why don't you get one janitorial service to come in and clean rather than carrying all these cushions to the wash house?
I do that. Now it smell like pine-scented parking lot after Junkanoo. So these going to superwash.
That can't be no match with them big boys, and I have to tell you that.
You got that right. And when I get them dry, they're going straight to the composter for plastic covering.
I don't blame you, girl. But what you gonna do with the cat?
He going obedient training where he gonna learn how to use the toilet.
You mean the litter box?
No. I mean the toilet. He gonna learn how to doggone use that toilet, or he could be in timeout all day.
Hey, Superwash. They washes your presses, it cleans you, and entertains you 24/7.
What's hotter than summertime in the Bahamas? A Junkanoo and Goombay summer in the Bahamas. Get ready for one sizzling summer with 2 exciting street festivals. First up is Junkanoo Summer Festival every Saturday in July. Come see your favorite Junkanoo groups face off at Arawak Heat. And while you're there, enjoy mouth-watering Bahamian cuisine and entertainment. The heat continues into August with the return of the Goombay Summer Festival. Yes, you heard right. Goombay is back. Join us every Friday in August at Arawak Heat for live Bahamian music, delicious local cuisine, authentically Bahamian arts and crafts, and lots of games and entertainment. Junkanoo Summer Festival and Goombay Summer Festival, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism. See you every Saturday in July and every Friday in August. Visit Bahamas.com/summerfestivals for more details.
When I fly with Sky. Sky Bahamas. When I fly with Sky. Sky Bahamas. Oh, the plane them spanking clean. The pilots them push red. They fly you out on time. They flight attendants red. Service is their passion. With you they take good care. Safety is their culture. Yes, they'll get you there. When I fly.
Fly with us to Fort Lauderdale or the beautiful Bahama Islands. Book today at 702-2600 or visit our website at skybahamas.net and experience Sky.
At Ron's Electric Motors, they repair and rewind all major brands of electric motors, including water pumps, generators and the generator's back end, welding machines, electric lifts, air compressors, battery chargers, and more. They're equipped to handle up to 850 kilowatts and rewind up to 450 horsepower motors. They're conveniently located on the corner of Wolf and Clarence Roads and are open weekdays 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturdays till noon. They offer 24 hours emergency assistance. You can reach them at 242-356-0249.
Welcome to BTC Match Your Minutes, where everyone's a winner. Keep winning more minutes. Talk all day and we match it. You're getting more minutes. Every night till the morning. Keep winning more minutes. Talk all day and we match it. Talk all day with BTC and we'll match your minutes. So you can talk free all night. Terms and conditions apply. Everyone's a winner with BTC. Commonwealth Bank auto loans are as hassle-free and easy as it gets. It's just that simple.
With on-the-spot dealer reps to approve and help you through the process, you're right, it really is just that simple.
With the many options available, like insurance financing, low down payments, and easy monthly payments, Commonwealth Bank had all the flexibility I needed in an auto loan.
Thanks, CB. Thanks, CB, for making it quick and easy. Commonwealth Bank, leader in personal banking services.
There's no other talk show like the show. If it's 5 o'clock, it's Hard Copy.
Welcome back. This is Hard Copy. You can call us. We're going to open our telephone lines for you in just a minute. 325-02-3506, 325-02-4243, and 325-02-5253. John Bostwick is my special guest of interest here this evening on Hard Copy. We've been looking at this Bahama thing, as I said. There's so many things happening. I want to go and get into John's head right here. He's a noted attorney. And I really want to look at something else before we move off the Chinese topic. If you look around, friends, a lot of things happening. We have a Chinese embassy here up on the Eastern Road, East Shirley Street. We've got a lot of things that the Chinese have bought into the Bahamas and they own. We got a lot of gifts from the Chinese, even from the Taiwanese early, like the Kendall Essex Gym. Now we got a big stadium by the Chinese. The Tribune at one point had expressed serious concern about the presence of the Chinese in the Bahamas at a point where they are strategic in the Bahamas. And it may be causing some trepidation among some people, especially those in the diplomatic corps. Of course, I wanted to ask John from the beginning of the show today, his views on this geopolitics of all these things. I mean, all of this thing that's happening on West Bay Street, the buy-up of hotels, the local hotels in downtown Nassau, like the old, I think it was called the old Mayfair, or
Olympia.
the Olympia Hotel. All that property on the northern side of West Bay Street, headed from the Hilton. All that property where Fat Tuesday is right now. All that property headed east on the north side of Bay Street. And in fact, the entire Hilton Hotel has been bought by the Chinese and purchased. And they're doing a number of things now. Why I brought this question up, John, is because I've noticed that they're building and stripping the old Mayfair Hotel. Osprey, I think it's called. That's it's called, the White Hotel.
The Olympia.
The Olympia.
Yes.
The Olympia. They're stripping that, or they're doing some work, and I saw them all over it yesterday. And then, if you look on the eastern side of Bay Street, number 1 Bay Street, headed around the curb where the wall many years ago used to be, where Scotiabank is, they've put the
that Scotia is closed.
That Scotia's closed.
Yes.
So they've already put up a fence. They've erected a fence. The fence is now onto the building.
Yes.
Enclosing the entire building. The only thing, there's no fence to the actual front because they're still doing business. But I notice all of that, and I'm wondering, what does this mean for the Bahamas and Bahamians? Though we know, and we heard of the announcement by the Right Honorable Perry Glasson Christie about the purchase of it and so forth and so on, all this Broadwalk and all that. And I asked Obie Wilchman about it. He says, no, it's not going to look like any, the Orient, with all these Chinese buildings and all that. We're going to still keep our architecture. But it is quite a concern when you look at that as well as that big chunk of property, which I'm sure the money's good for, and the fact that the Americans, it's got to be, now no one has told me this. I mean, I don't know if the Americans are. It may just be my mind. But I'm sure that Americans have got to be concerned about all of this in proximity to their piece of the landmark, which is Queen Street, and the embassy and all these kinds of places. I'm just wondering about that. Does that make any sense in the geopolitics of why we may be having all these disturbances and these nuances with the Bahama Project and all these? I mean, there's so many things happening, John. I'm beginning to be concerned about that this may be bigger than all of we.
Yeah, well, nothing should be bigger than us in the Bahamas. And that's, although your statement might be correct, but this is our little piece of the world, and nothing should be bigger than us here. And so I start my response to that. Of course, there's geopolitical activity going on, and always has been. The Bahamas is the gateway. I have a company called Bahamas Gateway Development, and the Bahamas is the gateway not only to the Americas, between North and South America, North, South, and Central America, North America, and the Caribbean. We are the gateway. Either way, if you're coming from the Caribbean heading to North America, you pass through. If you're going the other way, you pass through. If you're going to South, you pass through. But the same as if you're coming from Europe heading over to America, you pass through. Africa coming to America, you pass through. The Bahamas is the gateway to the world. We are a very important geopolitical region on the map, period. Little spot, largest maritime border with the United States of America, the world's #1 superpower. Okay, so we are important, period. Add into that the fact that we, on a per capita basis, remain the 3rd richest country in the hemisphere. Okay, very important. Add into that, although we locals don't know it, we are per capita potentially one of the richest countries in a mineral reserve point of view in the world. Again, important. So that, you say Queen Street, and you mean Queen Street as the location of the U.S. Embassy.
Mm-hmm.
The Hilton property has been for sale for 10 years or more. There have been any numbers of buyers in and out, Chinese group, Malaysian groups, Indian groups, Canadian groups. But the one category I haven't really observed is an American group. Okay? And it is owned by a Canadian group today. And one of the pet peeves I have, and I've said this very openly to American interests and people I'm very close with in the U.S., that I find it a crying shame that America would have led the investment into the tiger markets, Southeast Asia on the other side of the planet, into the South America when they were booming, the Brazil and the emerging markets in South America. And the term in itself, emerging markets, really is based around Western investments in third world jurisdictions that they consider growth areas. Indonesia now emerging market on the other side of the planet. Papua New Guinea emerging market. All right. When was the investment? Peru gets $2 billion a year to fight the drug trade. Peru, a country that says that they'll never stop producing coca. It's one of the only ways they can address their national debt. All right. But yet they get $2 billion a year in aid to fight the drug trade. When was there going to be massive U.S. investment in our region, in the Caribbean, and more pointedly in their longest maritime border, the Bahamas? And traditionally, Steve, if you go back through investment in the Bahamas, you can go to the 50s. The amount of U.S. investment is fractional compared to Canadian, particularly Canadian, and other jurisdictions.
What are you getting at? There's a reason for that, or
I don't know what the reason is, but
no interest.
But what I suggest is that there was a massive oversight. You know, sometimes you are so occupied with the world at large, you forget your family.
Yeah.
You know, you forget your neighbors. And the Bahamas has been clicking along, all right. You know, but the fact is that we do need access to U.S. capital markets. We do need access to the massive investment of the U.S. dollar as it is felt around the world. In absence of that, there's a vacuum. Steve, when you have vacuums, they're filled. Okay? The Chinese are glutted with capital, glutted with money, and they are investing it all over the world. So there was no doubt that the Bahamas was going to pop up on their radar and that they would bring capital into the Bahamas. There was no doubt. Unless that vacuum was filled, i.e. unless we didn't need it. Okay? And the U.S. debt is what, 50%? $6 trillion, $7 trillion to China?
To China, right.
Okay? So really, I often say that amongst nations in the world, the Bahamas really is that amazing little place, you know, that jewel, that wonder wow. Look at Puerto Rico, $76 billion in debt. They don't know where they're going to, and that's a U.S. protectorate. All right? We are crying, and I think their GDP to debt ratio is 140+%. Okay? Twice what ours is.
Yeah.
When you look around the world, we have really been blessed not to have been sunk like the rest a long time ago. Our debts are addressable. Our pains are fixable. Like you say you want to discuss in the second half of this, one of the beautiful things that I see, even from our Chamber of Commerce coming today. Look, SMP, don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. We understand that our governments, successive, pinned a big hope on Bahama. But there are those in our economic environment, in our economic community, who don't see us as a one-horse town, who don't see us as totally dependent upon the next big anchor project. You hear the leader of the opposition speak, and one of the things he said was, look, we got to change the way we're thinking. We can't continue on this anchor project, this one thing that's going to save us, and because we can see stuff happens, all right? But that is the resounding message. I have been saying it forever.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of my 2020 plan is economic diversification.
It is no new information. It is only a repeated appeal that we have to diversify and get into areas that's going to benefit our people. We've got to invest more in our own people. This is a old remedy that we refuse to utilize. I mean, we're still looking for the foreign direct investor, to the point where it's perhaps going to eventually be to our detriment. We're not developing our people,
Not
our
eventually.
capital.
It's here.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to face what is happening. See, what I'm saying, John, is that there's so much stuff that's happening with the Chinese. I have got to go back to this. That I wonder if, you know, we're dealing with a a people, Chinese, who have been around all them years, all them dynasties. This ain't no new people. These are some of the oldest people in the world, and they've been dealing with business around the world in different markets with different, but they have the experience. I'm saying they seem to be wanting to be here in this part of the world in great numbers and great presence with the monies that they now have, because they do have money. Everybody's looking to China for great investments. I know this. But I mean, is there something that you believe, and I know it may not be polite to say, all things considered what we're discussing today, and looking at the Bahama, the actual Exim Bank and the Chinese construction company, but do you believe that our friends to the north, our neighbors, are concerned to a point that we may be getting in too deep, but unknowingly, with dealing with China the way that we have been? We have been very liberal in our dealings with China. I mean, very liberal. We've gotten lots of soft loans. We've done a number of things. We have sat down with them, and we've talked about plotting the way forward with in our economy.
You see,
is there another plan? Could it be that some are believing that there's another ulterior motive, more so than just, hey, let's go and do some investment? I mean, it's about making money, but it could be also for China, since they have more than enough money, about something else. Has anybody ever given that any consideration? And that's why I asked the question: have we gotten in too deep, and are we in over our heads with what could be the end game? Never mind that they have potential to do this and do that. What could be the end game for the Bahamas as we know it today, John Bostwick?
Steve, my short answer is that no. And why I say no? Because
no, what? We're not getting in over our heads?
We're not in too deep.
Hmm.
And why I say that is that, firstly, we're not in as deep as even America is. All right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not in as deep as, I would say, 9 out of 10 countries in the world. We, unlike the rest of them, okay? All of this knee-jerk reaction is really about one project. It's about Bahama. The Chinese have been here a long time, Steve. The Chinese, and apart from that, look, this is a country that enjoys most favored nation status with the U.S. As far as a trading partner. All right? And so I don't want to get involved in this demonizing of the Chinese. All right? The Chinese and the U.S. are the two world superpowers, and they're involved in a massive tug-of-war over every jurisdiction on the planet Earth, from the South China Sea to the Bahamas. Okay? And so, yes, we are there on that stage, and there's a tug-of-war going on. And I think in some sense that's not a bad thing for a small country such as ours, to have both major international players interested in you, okay? Interested in you from a good way, where they both want to make sure, one, that you're stable, all right? That neither one of them want to see the Bahamas as an unstable jurisdiction. And two, where they want to ensure that neither one has total and absolute control of your destination. And so they're both anxious to help. That can be bad if you understand and if you don't go too far. Remember, our second city, Hutchison Whampoa owns our second city. That's a Chinese company, Steve.
Exactly.
Okay, largest port in the region. Okay, they own the airport, DEFCO. They own Lucaya. All right, they've been here. That's nothing new. The Chinese, and that is what is called a positive global Chinese company. They have other Chinese companies that are active here. The Chinese Harbor Company is building ports in Abaco, Exuma. You don't hear any hoorah going on about them. They're quietly here doing what they're doing, getting on with putting in some substantial infrastructure. But we've got something that's gone sky high here. But to say that there is not geopolitical games going on in the Bahamas, it would be crazy not to say that, Steve. It would be crazy to say that the Bahamas is not a place where anybody with an interest in the United States of America would not seek to establish a foothold. It's a border. Of course they would want to establish a foothold. And of course they're looking at things that I feel the government of the Bahamas, unlike these private assets, the government of the Bahamas did hem and haw for over a year, if you remember, with regard to the acquisition of the Hilton. It was nothing better. The investors who own the project are screaming blue murder. We want to sell it. We got a buyer. There's no alternative offers on the table. These people have projects and they're a viable entity. Why not sell
On
it?
for that.
Okay. These entities own over 70% of the real estate in San Francisco, over 60% of the real estate in Manhattan. They own a hotel downtown Nassau too. Okay. It was,
quite interesting.
You understand? And they don't own 70% of the Bahamas. They could say that they own 70% of major cities in the U.S. They don't own 70% of the Bahamas.
Not yet.
Not yet. And we are aware. We are watching. We are talking about it.
We are aware. We are watching, but couldn't we do anything about it?
With the
If they want to own 70% of all of it,
Steve,
they can do it in the swipe of a pen just by deciding that they're going to foreclose.
Steve, with the right leadership, 70% owning Bahamas, not owning 70% of the Bahamas.
I know. I'm saying to you, that's a good beginning with the other real estate. You got to build up these things slowly.
Steve, with the right leadership, and one of the things that is beautiful about us, there is no foreign acquisition in the Bahamas that doesn't require government approval.
Mm-hmm.
So, an alert and astute, politically aware, geopolitically aware.
Yeah, but see, John, where you going now? Where you going? We are not there, and we don't plan. We can be planning to be there with the. Hold on, with these old weapons that are no longer viable to keep the Bahamas.
Steve, one of the things I have learned to do in recent times is to take note of where I am, and not to be overly concerned about where they are. Okay, so they may not be where we are, but you and I are very much there. We are very much sitting down, looking at this, having a discussion live on national radio, so that there are people with leadership abilities in the Bahamas who have the capacity to address this in the way it needs to be addressed. And if we are here, and me and you sitting down right here, where are we? Sitting in the Bahamas today?
Mm-hmm.
Then we are here. The Bahamas is here. Okay? So it just needs to be that persons who are in the right set of mind state to be in the right position to affect the decisions. So don't say that the Bahamas ain't there. We are here. We are aware. We are just like the leader of the Chamber of Commerce. He's not talking through any government agency anymore. He's talking directly to the S&P. If you read his articles today, he is saying to them, look here, we are here. There are those in the Bahamas who understand intimately what you are saying, what is going to happen, and we are telling you it doesn't have to happen. We are prepared to make the changes. We know the changes that need to be made, and we are pushing it. We are pushing the issues. So don't go and sit down to no government and hear pie in the sky. We are telling you from the local business community, those people, those of us who are actually running the machine, who are actually engaged in the running of the machine. And I dare to say, those 45, those 40-somethings, those born-free Bahamians who are got their shoulders to the mill. And we're telling the world, listen to us. We understand. We are aware. And we are prepared to move to the front. Given the opportunity, we can fix everything in front of us. We know how to fix it. We are aware.
Yeah, the other question that I have in my mind, they hear you. Do they have the belief in us? Do they have the confidence? That's another thing for another day. I suppose we could talk about it. This is Hard Copy. John Bostwick is on with me. We're taking your calls, and we're talking any number of issues here because today I kind of feel like we are at a point where we're just contemplating what we really should be doing now. We are in the front of the courts on the Bahama project, but we have all these other matters that are really inundating us from left, right, and center on the immigration front, on the crime front, and I hate to talk about this crime. The numbers continue to grow. I see where somebody made a murder by using a vehicle.
Second one in less than 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks.
So where are we? I mean, plus we have all these other people in this game of trying to make sure that we could keep our head above water. When we need to grow the economy, when our tourism sector seems to be having a number of challenges that we need to be prepared for. And I keep hearing the talk that we are okay, we are going to be prepared for that. And I'm saying, is this all just talk, friends? Is this all just talk? Where are we really? Can you help us today? 325-0235 or 632-502-42 4243. You can send me a text at 376-9234, and we'll be happy to talk with you and share the microphones with John Bostwick, who is my special guest. Now, John, let's go back for a second so I can kind of like wrap this whole thing up with the whole Obama issue. This whole bit about the experts believing that the Bahamas courts should endorse U.S. bank filing by Bahama. Now, there are people throughout the newspapers today who believe that that's the only way that we can deal with this matter successfully, to bring a kind of resolution. That, in other words, don't worry about this talk about sovereignty here. Try to see the wisdom in accepting this decision of the U.S. court with regards to Chapter 7, so that we can get this behind us and get on with the building of this project. How do you see that? How do we deal with it? I asked a couple of lawyers last night, how do we deal with that? How do we get around this particular concern? Because the Attorney General has already said, look, you know, we can't do that. The Prime Minister's basically effectively said, look, we can't do that. Yet today, before the courts, that's the thing that's being pushed, that this is what has to happen. I'm just wondering, John, I know this may be tiresome, but the point is, as a new thinker in what is really truly a new Bahamas, is that the way that we ought to be going, considering, and some people believe that we ought to make amendments right now to legislation to accommodate this kind of thing under our laws, since it's not now existing under our laws in this jurisdiction. What do you say about this whole concept and this push by very important and influential people that Bahamian court should really endorse this U.S. bankruptcy filing by Bahama, call it a day, and let's see how we can move? Does that make sense?
Steve, no. For me, no. And you know, it's one thing to be a pure lawyer and to understand legal angling and wrangling, and to be appointed and then retained to represent a client's interests. I understand that. I fully understand that. However, Steve, I can't get off of. I start and end at that nationalism.
Understood.
See, I can't get.
So do I. That's why I put that question to you.
I can't shift from that. And so when you ask me that question and I'm not retained, I can't answer it from any other point as a nationalist. And I say, hell no. There's no way we could allow that matter to be adjudicated and resolved anywhere but in the Bahamas. You hear me, given my option, I wouldn't even have any meetings in Beijing about it.
Yeah,
okay?
you did say that.
All right? I would let them know what would happen if they don't find themselves to Nassau to discuss this. And there's no other place. There's no other place that's going to have the national impact that this. How could you sit down? You might as well, you know, Steve, you know, to that end, a lot of these same people, right? And I'm going to take this answer you from a different angle. A lot of these same people would have us abandon the Bahamian dollar, dollarize our economy. They would have us seek to resign our sovereignty, to have us import foreign policemen again, to have us resign over the running of certain government ministries to foreign consultants, because they feel that we just simply can't.
Yeah, that's
Okay?
why I told you earlier.
All right, and when I hear all of this, this all sounds like a throwing in of the towel to me. Okay, that we simply can't. That our judicial and they might be right, you know, to some extent. But see, I refuse stubbornly to accept certain things. I refuse to accept that our judicial system is for some reason lacking, lacks the expertise, or is in fact so compromised that it cannot adjudicate fairly on a $3.5 billion transaction. If we are saying that, then we are telling every investor,
we have no confidence.
Every investor, anybody seeking to establish a bank here, anybody seeking to do a massive development here, that we have resigned the control of our legal system,
my lord,
to a foreign jurisdiction. No, and the ability for our legal system to adjudicate local disputes of this nature No. And something that's going to affect thousands of Bahamian jobs, hundreds of Bahamian contractors. Well, which jurisdiction, Steve?
Well, I know you wouldn't like to be, if you were on the bench, wouldn't like to be in the shoes of an Ian Winder who's the justice on this, because, I know that he's very, very competent, and I appreciate that. All I'm saying is that when you look at all of these things that are happening all one time, he's to hear this winding up, he's to hear this whole bit about trying to get this bankruptcy thing. I mean, what kind of decision could you anticipate on something like the bankruptcy?
Steve, you're going to have, I wouldn't dare seek to anticipate. But remember I told you, sitting here, even the night when we stopped in for about half an hour, and then the other night with Wayne, we referred to interlocutors, that the applications within the application could be months. And without being tongue-in-cheek, the blessed position that Mr. Winder, Justice Winder, finds himself in is that whatever he rules, he's going to be appealed.
Anything that's going to be appealed.
I put money on it.
I buy the side.
Whatever. And so, no doubt, as any competent justice will do, he doesn't want to be appealed. He will present a very well-reasoned, detailed ruling. But we're talking $3.5 billion. Okay, we're talking multi-jurisdictional legal questions.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever comes out on the losing side of that is going to appeal. Okay, so we are already in that quandary, which is why I think I would have taken a hard line if I were the government and told them, man, look, y'all think y'all got a mess going on here. If there's anything that is clear, that I know I can get a clear ruling on the court from today, is that y'all ain't finished that property. My conveyance to you
just says it has to be finished.
And I take it.
Put him a line back.
And I taking it. Now, I don't know what y'all gonna fight over and y'all winding up. Now, you winding up over there. What you winding up? I have the land. I have the primary asset.
All right.
With the buildings on it. Okay.
You can't move the buildings.
You can't move them. You may own them. I might cannot do nothing with the land, depending on how these contracts and these agreements are written. But I have the land. So what are you going to do? And you got your winding up going on, your bankruptcy going on over there.
I got my winding up going on in the jurisdiction that the heads agreed to.
Well, you see,
that's another thing.
You have all of this going on, but in the middle of it, I have the primary asset under my control.
Now, I'm told, right, that Article 31 of this Bahama Heads of Agreement 2011, I'm told that it clearly establishes where any suit litigation would occur and be governed by Bahamas laws.
Mm-hmm.
So now, another lawyer told me today, and I'm learning a lot of stuff here these days, John, I might as well tell you, told me that this may not mean, may not have anything to do with this jurisdiction, the heads of agreement. That's something for this jurisdiction. But this has no bearing on what's happening with the bankruptcy in Delaware.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's an opinion, but that was what I got from legal counsel on that matter. Notwithstanding, in other words, that we have this clause in the Bahama Heads of Agreement between them and us, the heads of agreement, that is something just here. That is nothing to be. That cannot be considered in the United States jurisdiction. So it won't count, even though it's there. That this is where it must be heard. Any kind of lawsuit, any kind of stuff that's happening. The question is there a suit going on? Is anybody suing each other? So this may fall aside for the time.
Steve, a petition to the court to wind up is very much a suit, and you see, but it all comes about how these matters were commenced here. The matters here were commenced, to my understanding, by Bahamas seeking to get the ratification of the U.S. position. These positions were opposed, all right? And in the process of opposing, the government has now gone to the point of filing a winding up petition. So Bahama brought these matters to our courts, okay? And our courts is now seized, justifiably seized, and about to come to some decision on it, okay? So I can't say that the jurisdiction, again, Steve, I understand that there was a document signed by these parties in New York. I don't know if that is the same heads of agreement that you were reading.
2011.
And we can't say what all is in front of us. I know that there was something presented to the Delaware courts that they felt that they had the jurisdiction to address it. Okay? So those courts obviously felt that they were properly seized of this matter and that they had the right to address the bankruptcy of these 14.
Yeah, no question.
They obviously felt that.
Yeah. Let me take some calls as we entertain calls at this particular time, 325-023546. I'm going to ask you to keep your questions brief or your statements very brief because we have others who are trying to get in on the lines and we want to make sure everybody can get a chance to say their say. Yes, Sparky on line one. How you doing this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Steve. How you doing?
Peace and love, all is well.
Mr. Baltic, how you doing today, sir?
Good afternoon, Sparky.
Mr. Steve, I've heard you say many times. Mr. Baltic, I know you're quite aware of this too, but there are thousands of people that I have witnessed by stopping and going around different places that listens to Mr. Steve's hard copy every evening. But Steve, I would like to encourage them, like you encouraged them many times, to start calling in and voice their opinion. You have a lot of people, Steve, will always, when you stop somewhere, will always comment that they enjoyed your show yesterday. They like what John say. They like what Sparky say. They like what you say. But for some reason, Mr. Boswick and Mr. McKinney, they are afraid. I don't know why. They are afraid to stand up and be man and woman, to call into your show, Steve, and voice their opinion publicly. I know they might not want to see themselves marching on Bay Street with ZNS cameras showing them all over the news and things like that because they're scared of that word victimization. But what I would like to, Steve, and I believe you might agree with me, if they could start standing up like hard, red-blooded Bahamian nationalists and remember that this is our country and start calling Steve McKinney. I ask you all and start calling these shows, voicing your opinions, and then you would not hear this thing with the chronic callers calling over and over. Steve, you have a good day.
Somebody probably got on Sparky's bad side, and there was no complaint of that here. But anyway, we appreciate your call. Hard copy, how are you? Hi there.
Hi, Mr. McKinney. How you doing?
Very good, thanks.
Good evening to your guest. Did Bahama came in under the previous administration?
Yes.
Okay, the reason why I said that is, what if there are some clause in the heads of agreement that are irreversible? Because if you notice, BTC we had a problem with BTC.
It's irreversible?
Hello?
You mean that clause that said when the former prime minister said it's irreversible?
Yes. What if maybe Bahama has a trump card as well that the government don't know about?
Well, that's only speculation. So far, the way that the government has been moving, obviously the government has leverage to be doing the things that they're doing. John, would you say?
Yes, it would seem so. And as you say, just to be straight with you, caller, Bahama was a deal put on the table originally by the Christie administration, the first Christie administration, I think in 2005. And it didn't fly for a number of reasons. It didn't fly. And on achieving office
2007.
2007,
yeah.
Mr. Ingram managed to secure the deal as it is now, and so you say it comes forward under the former administration in 2011. But it would seem that when negotiating that new deal, the new Bahama deal, that the Ingram administration was successful in including certain caveats to in fact protect the Bahamian people with regard to the Crown land assets that were being transferred to Bahama in order to secure the deal. My information was that the reason the deal fell down under the previous Christie administration was really over the way in which those land assets had been transferred. And in correcting the transfer, Mr. Ingram's team was able to put in some caveats that made the land recoverable should certain commitments not be met. And that's where we are today.
That's correct.
Which is what I have said gives the governor of the Bahamas a very strong position with all these guys, as not even as mediator, as almost as the ultimate spoiler. Look, we'll party over. You know, we can turn the table over.
We could call the game in.
We're not playing chess. We come to push over all the pieces and say.
But of course, at the same time, Cable Beach, what is happening here is that the government really wants this to happen for many reasons. One is that it's a boost to the economy. Should it happen, it can take us out of a lot of muck and mire, if you will, with the economy. And secondly, which perhaps may be first on the agenda, depends on how one looks at it, is the fact that you're looking at the employment of thousands of Bahamians who are now there that perhaps will be laid off, 2,000 and another 5,000 that was anticipated to be added to the working pool. So this is something that is very important for the Christie administration in particular, but it is just as important for the Bahamas as the people in the country.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your call. All right. Let's talk with Turner on line 1. Turner, how are you? Anton will get you next.
Hey, Doctor.
Peace, all is well.
You know, people need to remember that it was Ingram that made some pronouncements that caused the first financier to leave the country, basically.
Yeah, the Harris Group.
To leave the Bahama deal alone. So we can't say that Ingram did some great thing and basically came in to save the day. Another thing Ingram did was he actually was responsible for 5,000 to 8,000 Chinese coming into the country. He was desperate in his attempt to create jobs, but in that desperation, he secured a deal wasn't in favor of Bahamians.
I appreciate what you're saying. Let's ask John about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I thought you were finished.
So the last thing I'm trying to mention is we got to look at the relationship that Mr. Christie had with Mr. Meridian, because you know it's kind of strange how this thing is playing out just like the same deal that happened with Arachi, where he wanted his the Christie administration basically promising something. As Meridian is acting like government promised something, now they reneged on their promises, and now he's just reacting proper. And we have a big tit for tat between an investor and the government of Bahamas, and that doesn't sit well for us internationally.
Yeah.
And the Christie administration needs to think differently about their approach.
Yeah.
They should be playing this on public.
I understand. I appreciate your call, and maybe you make some sense. John, what do you think of that? He's making comparisons, though, with the Harachi Group that wanted a bank, which seemed to have been something more of a private thing. And I don't mean private as in this private deal with Bahama. I mean private as in something from a party perspective, if we remember correctly, that something had happened prior to them being elected to the government. I don't know if we can put the Harachi piece in there, except to say that maybe the thinking has not changed, that we can create these kinds of situations and then eventually put them on paper into a heads of agreement and then go by it. I think what is happening here, John, is that the caller, like many others, perhaps are concerned about the way that we do business, the way that we've been doing things, the way that we've not been as transparent and accountable, and also to table this document. I mean, why can't a heads of agreement, even at this stage, be tabled for public scrutiny?
Well, you know, Steve, the first set of Bahama documents were tabled, but I am 100% with that. I think every agreement entered into by the government of the Bahamas on behalf of the people of the Bahamas should be tabled as a matter of course. Mr. Ingram used to have a policy of tabling all documents, but there are more than one heads of agreement that you find it pretty hard to get a copy of, including the Awak Island Port Development, Bahama. These things, believe it or not, they are available if you know who to ask and where to go. And I often direct people to the clerks of the House of Assembly.
Yeah.
They are
ANSAD.
They are very, very. They're there to assist. And believe it or not, the present clerks of the House of Assembly, they've been at it so long that they know who they work for. And when I say that, I say it tongue in cheek. And they are servants of Her Majesty.
Let's take a call from Anton. I hear you, John.
And so they don't answer. They answer to the people here, you know.
I understand.
You go and ask them for something, they know, they check to see what Her Majesty's rules say, not anybody else's rules. And if it's something you're entitled to, you get it.
Absolutely. Anton, how are you?
Oh, I'm in great shape, sir. Though I'm very, very concerned. Good afternoon to yourself, Brother McKinney.
Thank you.
And good afternoon to your guest, Mr. Bostwick. Good afternoon to the nation.
Good day.
Gentlemen, and the nation, if Sarkis, Meridian, and his group had their way, their bankruptcy filed in Delaware, we don't know how many hundreds, or we don't know how many thousands of Bahamians, even at this point, would have already been sent home. That within itself speaks to the mindset of the loyalties, of the commitment that the investor has to the Bahamian people.
You're talking about this $80 million severance pay as a part of that application and all that?
Absolutely. That says a lot within itself. Bahamians were going to be paid off and sent home. in an already struggling economy. Secondly, sir, you look at what they said about us 42 years ago. Bahamians weren't qualified to run the Bahamas, our own nation. 42 years later, we have persons like yourself with a national voice, giving other Bahamians national voice. We have persons like the One Free Bahamian, who's hosting with you, who's spreading the good news about the possibilities of this country, the opportunities that this country has. We look at BTC gone. You be the judge. Who did a better job at running BTC, them or us? I mean, come on, man. For crying out loud. Sarkis Ismailian broke the whole chain of the communication, the goodwill communication and negotiations between himself and the government. The government never, ever took a step in the legal direction before Sarkis Ismailian filed his bankruptcy in Delaware. And we were left with no other choice after we realized that the negotiations were breaking down, but to protect the best interests of the Bahamian people. What did this man want? I mean, my God, he's in the Bahamas. At least be respectful to the Bahamian people, if not to the government. And this is no time for division. This is time for us to step up and support our government. Because in the words of Sir Lyndon, gentlemen, and the nation, if you are not prepared to stand up and fight for what is yours, you don't deserve it. That is the bottom line. Thank you and good day.
I appreciate your call. John, something interesting as he was talking. You know, the Prime Minister said that this project is 97% finished. Ismailian said 98, but I suppose 97, 98, okay, no problems. Let's say it's 97% finished. He still though needs more than $600 million. That seems quite a penny to be 97% finished. And then the other thing is, if you're 97% finished, wouldn't it be reasonable that parts of this project could open at 97%, or you could open it? See, what I'm getting at, we're wrangling for some more monies. And I can say what the value of this, you mean to tell me, you mean 97, 98, 99, 100, 3% more for completion is going to take us over $600 million? Is that because we were supposed to open on a particular date and we got to pay all them people in between there to get to where we should be to try to open by November? I mean, you know, to me, that boggles my mind, because I'm not a brain like a lot of people who, in fact, can count to 1 million without stopping, or can know the value of $1 million, like some people claim to know. 600 million is plenty money, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
For a 3% to finish off. I mean, unless I'm missing some stuff. See, all I'm saying is this: if you're 97% finished, we can't be wrangling in this hole like we are, protracting this thing, delaying this project, and we are 97% finished. Now, if Ismailian is correct, we're 98% finished. If the Prime Minister is correct, John, I see you scratching your head. You don't scratch your head. If the Prime Minister is correct, we are 97% finished. I mean, what's the beef? $600 million to finish it to where we're supposed to go. Is that right?
You know,
or is this game being played with numbers and we all, you know, bedazzled by the whole thing, and really we missing what is obvious? Logics. To me, I mean, if it is almost finished, let's get this doggone thing open, let's go. But we can see with our own naked eyes from the outside surrounding of this building that we seem to have a ways to go. And then, don't forget now, John, as you think and give me your answer, Colin Higgs from down to the Ministry of Works has been saying in the newspapers that we're supposed to open in January, we're supposed to open December 2014, January of 2015, March of 2015, and then May of 2015, 4 delayed openings. People seem to forget the January one. But it's very much true that they had said that. I have it on record. So we're looking at that, and then the man comes up last week and says, they couldn't get any occupancy certificate with all the electrical work that has to be done, with all the this and the that and the elevators. windows and all. I mean, you know, I believe that we've gotten so caught up with all this big talk about billions and millions that we're missing some small things, John. And I would like to see is Merlion and the Prime Minister and those who are responsible and whoever to fill us in on these little small things that seems to be a nuisance. They're just little facts that get in the way. Put them aside. Let's talk big money. Because that's what is really happening, you know. How could we have gone inside there if these things weren't done? And how could they have gotten an occupancy certificate, John? So that means the whole thing is a flam. I mean, they're telling us that they're going to open. How could you have opened if these checks and balances were not in place and you couldn't get an occupancy certificate?
Well, you see, Steve, you said a lot. Let's go back to the caller. Documentation suggests that and it goes right back to the last thing you said before you went to the lines. How could we allow this to be adjudicated somewhere else? Had everything that was reported to have been filed in Delaware come to fruition, we would have had a staffing of less than 50, some 45 people.
Yeah, what they call a skeleton staff.
Okay, so you are talking to what that caller was saying, something that just cannot happen. All right. Now, on the flip side, can the government of the Bahamas justifiably continue pulling money out of the sky to pay people? I can't see that either. Cannot happen. Cannot continue to happen. I'm jump through 98%. Question. You gotta ask a question. Sometimes when you hear a number, you ask a question. 98% of what?
They said 98% finished.
98% of what? 98% of the casino floor is finished.
No.
98% of the golf course is finished.
The project.
No, which part of the project, Steve?
No, 98% of the project.
The whole thing?
The whole thing.
98%.
That's what the Prime Minister said. That's what Starkers as Merlion said. But I can only go by what they say.
But I don't know if they was referring, you know,
well, they had to have been.
To the entire project. John. You know, what are they saying? What are they saying? That they have, how many hotels are there, Steve? 4 towers, 4 different hotel properties?
Oh, 5.
Are they saying that they have 3 of them 100% completed and ready for occupancy, and that the 4th one has 10% of its work left to be done in it, so that's an overall 98%? What does this 98% reflect? Exactly. And so I asked that question, 98%, exactly 98%
of what?
Of what? Okay? And trust me, I would have thought in the PR exercises that are going on here, that if there was 98% or 100% of the golf course and the clubhouse and the lots for sale were finished, you see, when I look at the golf course, I see one portion of it covered in containers. Still.
Yeah.
Okay? Covered. But an acre or 2, maybe more.
Yeah.
All right? So the golf course obviously is not 100% finished. Outside of that, I would have had drones flying over that, and every time you cut on ZNS, you'll be seeing the beautiful Bahama golf course with people playing on it, and I had that open. All right, so obviously that's not 100% finished, as pretty as some parts of it look. The casino, I would have had tours, virtual tours, and otherwise tours, people walking through the casino to reinforce the belief for the level of propaganda that's going on. And the towers that were 98% complete, when you give me 98% complete, I'm thinking that all of your rooms are finished, okay, and that there might be 1 or 2 little tweaks and things to be done to public spaces. So why can't we tour the rooms? You know, you remember when Atlantis was coming up? How many times, man? How many times the press was toured through there and through the rooms and through the different stages? I myself had about 15 tours of Atlantis through the different stages before it was open. And so any statement as to the level of completion that could be validated and verified
by the common ordinary man.
By any Joe.
Who's hanging around Beantown and Chippenham, they say, boy, that can be bad out there.
Man, and a minute, if you see that, this, okay,
look here, that could be so, but look, that can be bad.
All right, we all knew. We all knew. We couldn't have this conversation. I couldn't say to you 98% of what, all right? When you talk about looking and cross-referencing Bahamas sue CCA, how much they sue CCA for? 200, 300 million of that, about 10%, 30 million is for defective work, but yet they need 300 to 600 million to fix work. Numbers ain't adding up. Why didn't they hold?
Somebody is not telling us the truth, and we're being played here. There's a bigger game going on, John Boston.
Steve, I always say and what we haven't discussed here, there are a couple of points that we've raised that I felt that we needed to raise. One, where are the workers? if you've locked out the executives, locked up there, taking their cell phones and computers, where are those workers? I want to know where every one of them is. Number two, follow the money. Okay, so X Bank says 2.4 billion. Yeah, okay, his million say 900 million. Okay, that comes up to the 3.4, 3.2, 3. That's about what we're looking for. X Bank says they got another 100 and something million on the table, so the numbers add out, fluff out around 3.5 billion. All right, there's millions are saying that they got another 100 million on the table, ready to go. Ready to go. But people are talking about the fact that quantity surveyors are saying there ain't $2 billion on the ground. Now, I want to know, and I want somebody, because the Bahamian people, as we have said over and over on this show, we are invested in this thing. There's been $1.2 billion of concessions, and there's been monies advanced, cash that is owing. We're invested in this. And I want somebody to do a quantity surveying exercise on behalf of the Bahamian people. I want, just like how the government has been able to pull this money out of the sky, $7.5 million here, boom, there's another some, boom. They could pull money out of the sky for Carnival, 11 million, boom. All right, we got $3.5 billion dispute going on. Pull 10 million, 5 million, whatever you want to pull out the sky, and on behalf of the Bahamian people, bring in world-renowned experts to quantify that building, please. And have that exercise done in the open, fully accountable, and I want to know to the penny what is there.
Yeah, that may be all well and good for us as a government, but remember now, we have a stake, yeah, but remember now, the financier is XM Bank, and the construction company is China Construction America. Now, people would argue with you, John, and say, well, why wouldn't they do that? Let them do that. You see, what's also befuddling to me is that the Chinese seem to be very, very quiet. XM Bank and the construction company, well, not so much the construction company, they've said some things, but the XM Bank, who are holders of this mortgage, they seem to be very quiet, as if just waiting to see how these guys will play it out, and then they move in like the mongoose and snatch it. I don't know.
But Steve, ask yourself some questions. This is for us to do, you know. You know why this is for us to do? If it is clear, and if it is the case, that all that you hear on the rumor mill is true, that the Bahama Group and its fundamental backers refuse to sign a personal guarantee. Okay. So are we to assume that they have not personally guaranteed this deal up to this point with their assets? Yeah, we'd assume that.
Of course.
So who guaranteed this deal?
The Bahamas government.
And who are the Bahamas government? Who are we? People. We the people. So you don't think it's in we the people. Ultimately, the Chinese X-Bank has security.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay? This is why I get right back to you and see, maybe you will understand. I know you like to reflect on the things I say. You hear what I say I was going to do a long time? Take the security. It's going to be paying plenty of attention to me.
Yeah. Well, maybe we haven't heard, maybe we have not heard what we anticipate to hear, but we'll hear it soon from the Chinese XM Bank. Let me just go to something before we lose the time. We talked about this 97%. You asked me 97% of what? Listen what Christy says. The project starts up by the
remember now, as you say this, we got a 51% at BTC.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on. John, you are just so miserable sometimes, you know.
Go ahead.
So mischievous.
Go ahead.
The project, says Christie in his national address, by most informed estimates, is 97% completed.
Rewind that.
The project, the entire project, the project.
Now come with the qualification.
Okay.
Highlight the qualification.
By most informed estimates.
Okay, that's a doubly qualified statement.
Well, it's 97% complete.
By most, not all.
By most.
But not all.
Yeah, but these are the key most people.
But not all.
But the most are the key people.
But still not all.
Yeah.
Informed what?
Estimates.
Estimates.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, finish.
But that's what the Prime Minister said.
No, finish.
Ismarillion said something else. He said, how do you deal with a project like this, almost 98% completed?
These, I want to use to see, the Prime Minister used the word, he used the word jack publicly on the floor of the House. Right. But I won't use that word. But when he comes back and says, them jack, who tell me 98%? They was wrong.
You mean I need to look for that? I need to anticipate that.
They was wrong. But anyhow, it was an estimate.
Yeah, anyhow.
Yes, they were incorrectly informed. They were misled.
But here's, in context, here's Christie's dilemma. The project, by most informed estimates, is 97% completed, but has missed 2 opening dates. He said only. I see your point, you know. He said only 2 opening dates that they missed.
But that's not true. And you just corrected us. You
Exactly.
corrected that. You
Exactly.
said it's 4.
It's 4. It is 4.
It was 4.
It's
But
December.
he's estimating the number of opening dates.
I see.
That's an estimate.
That's a good example.
That's
He says they said December 2014, January of 2015. Then they said March 27th of 2015. Then they said May.
The Prime Minister was misinformed.
Then
as to the
it's
number
brilliant.
of
Say he ain't
opening
giving us
dates
no
for you.
more
The Prime
projected
Minister
opening.
was misinformed as to the number of opening dates.
Anyway,
as he would not mislead us in that way.
He says construction work has stopped and the general contractor and other contractors and subcontractors are owed substantial sums of money.
Stick a pin, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Construction work has stopped. And I can guarantee you that the 4,500 Chinese are well accounted for. We know where they are, and they are getting ready to be shipped out of here unless they figure out what they're doing in this.
No,
No?
because see,
oh,
Christie
okay.
anticipates this to continue quickly.
Yeah, but you see, sometimes you got to use
So-
the right rhetoric to let people know that you got this thing covered.
Well,
And that you got to let these fellas know that it ain't on me how much it costs you to get every one of them out while you on pause. Get them out.
Yeah.
And if you got to bring them back, bring them back.
It's business. Add that to your expense.
Add that to this. Because we ain't got them hanging up here. They here for something.
Yeah.
They ain't here to be hanging on no dormitory.
Well, maybe they're hanging out down by Hilton and helping with that construction, which is also something interesting. Because as I understand it, that is really not supposed to begin in earnest until Bahamas completed in full.
Well, something going on, Steve. They got Penny Green fence up. They closed the parking lot.
And they put big fence around Hilton.
And
I wonder if the fence is on the back of the beach. I've got to go that way to see if it's on
No,
the
they
back.
can't block the beach, Steve. But they could block the access to their property.
That's what I'm saying. The fence goes around the
I
property,
need to check
not
it
the
out.
high water level.
There's heavy equipment in there. They're digging. They're working behind the fence. It's not an idle site.
John, I don't know what to tell you, my friend. It's 4 before the hour. Let's check our text messages here. And that's a very key question you've asked us twice today. Where are the people gone? Where are they? Are they here? Maybe they're in those containers that you see on the golf course. You laughing? This person says, teacher, I can answer that question. This person is referring to the question I says, where are we on this whole matter? Somebody says, teacher, I can answer that question. We are where we are in the court, facing Winder because of the player leading the 10-man delegation. Excuse me, Allison? He said, there's clearly a conflict of interest and personal interest involved. Chapter 11 can easily be rolled to Chapter 7, and no one gets paid in the U.S. District. This person says, don't forget CCA, Mr. McKinney. Chinese Construction America. Yeah, they had a whole lot to say about this whole matter. They seem to be totally upset with Ismarian, the developers, and in kind to Mr. Ismarian is thinking that these guys trying to get me out of this game, not after my $900 million investment, just under $1 billion. I'm not going to go off whistling in the night. That's what he said. See, there's all kind of, and I agree with Wayne Monroe on Friday, you know. As I think of it more and more as the days unfold, we see that posturing is the big thing. You said it too. You called it this whole idea of brinksmanship.
Digging in,
making sure that these fellas, if they're going to sit around the table, come, let's go, but don't forget that I did this and
Trench
you did
warfare.
that.
And know there's going to be casualties. If you take me out, it ain't going to be easy. There's going to be casualties. I am well armed. I'm dug in. So it's better that we all agree.
Somebody says, go to the head of the class, Mr. Bostwick. The AG returned once again without an official black and white statement for the nation. Bahama did. Examine the AG closely. See, people are now beginning to think, because it is on record, allegedly, that the AG, Allison Maynard Gibson, was the attorney of Sarkis Ismarian between 2003 and 2005. that they think that's a conflict of interest, that she sits there at the table in Beijing as a negotiator for the government of the Bahamas. People read that there's something untoward about that. I mean, all of us would have been to a point, right, where we represented somebody, but now we're working for somebody else, and that we may meet our old bosses in the table. Isn't that a normal occurrence, John Boswick?
Steve, with fairness, if I get it right, she was the Minister of Investment.
Right. Yeah, she was the Minister of Investment
at the time. But the Ismailians were represented previously, her attorneys, her clients, if I get it right, and were represented by her former firm or by Gibson. Or by members of her extended family. Granted, you know, Steve, and again, I can't speak to it because I'm not certain exactly who the parties were. But if it were the case that her firm or a firm that she had been associated with represented any members in this, I would honestly feel that, see, it is the appearance, perception.
Yeah.
Okay, perception is 9/10.
You would have volunteered to be removed from this.
Yes, perception is reality. And so I would not want to have this discussion. This discussion should be impossible because it would have been that I would want to step off.
But the Prime Minister would have known that, and his advice would have been, so what? I mean,
and if he made
she's
that
the
decision,
advisor
and if he made that decision,
of the government.
that would be
she's the legal advisor
for him to do. You know, and sometimes persons have asked, why didn't the Prime Minister himself or the Deputy Prime Minister, who the Minister of Works, who was definitely involved in this, and his ministry could be seen to be a lead ministry in this, the Ministry of Finance.
No, John, you're forgetting.
Is a lead ministry.
The Deputy Prime Minister, who's the Minister of Works, the Honorable Philip Brave Davis, got a lot of bashing in media, especially from the Tribune editorial section, that talked about him going off, representing the Bahamas, and talking the sweetest things about the Chinese construction company, how they have been so polished and so on time, and this and that, in the midst of the scandal, or not a bad word to use, in the midst of this controversy with Bahama. He had been the lead spokesperson. Now, Christie very cleverly somehow got out of that, and Brave Davis undertook to go and represent Christie at these particular meetings that were different parts of the world, and he spoke in glowing terms. So when it comes now to a matter like this, the general public would have hit the roof, and so would have the Tribune. How dare? What the hell is this? They may have asked if Brave Davis went. See, I like to be practical. Now, I think that Brave Davis would have done a very decent job, no question. But I think the perception of conflict or the perception of problems may have arisen in the head of the Prime Minister because,
Steve,
he had been taking so much scrutiny on the whole matter.
Steve, but you see, that's disturbing.
Of course it is.
That's deeply disturbing. Here I am, the caller suggests, or the writer suggests that the Attorney General, our legal officer, might have been compromised. I'm suggesting to you, well, it could send a DPM. You're saying he's compromised, or
perceived by, not that he is, but perceived by. Remember, he was a part of this roadworks thing, this wrangling, that he ain't paying other people money.
This is true.
Yeah, this is what he said. And then, of course, the Tribune had editorial for days. I mean, I don't know if anybody was reading those, but editorial for days about Brave Davis and doing the stuff that he had been representing. And so I believe if he had gone and was appointed by the PM, that would have caused more controversy and may have done more harm than good. So he figured he can get away with sending the government's lawyer, which he has been able to do. The government's lawyer is the Attorney General.
Steve, again, this is the reason why, I feel that all of them going up there, they went up there to talk to the bank. All right? This is what I keep hearing.
Yeah.
They went up there to talk to the bank.
Yeah, and there's now a perception that, we are in collusion with the bank.
All right, but they didn't go up there to talk to their Chinese counterparts. They went up there to talk to the bank. All right? Our government leaders are talking to the Chinese bank. Why aren't we talking to the Chinese heads of state?
Yeah.
Okay? That's the level our government leaders are supposed to be dealing with.
Well, she went in the capacity of the government's lawyer, so certainly they went to be mediators or observers around the table of negotiations.
Okay, as the government is an interested party in this negotiation, in this business deal between Chinese ex-bank, Bahama, and CCA. And we are here as an interested party, the sovereign state of the Bahamas. Quite frankly, the sovereign state of the Bahamas, this is why I say they should have been summoned here. This matter touches 5 cabinet offices: Foreign Affairs, Immigration, Okay? We got 4,500, 5,000, 6,000 of your nationals here. We got to deal with that as a part of this at a governmental level. Okay? This is a foreign affairs mess. This is an attorney general legal jurisdictional conflict of laws mess. Ministry of Works mess. BEC, our telecommunications owed, our waterworks are owed, mess. And yes, I am having a dispute with you with regards to road work. That's why this ministry needs to be involved. Ministry of Finance, mess. Crown lands, public lands, mess. This is a cabinet level mess. All right? All of y'all, the bank, it's the only Chinese entity I'm dealing with is the bank. And you're dealing with 5, 6, 7 government cabinet agencies. Come here and deal with this, or I'm going to take this land. And that is going to get the attention of the people running China, who I really should be talking with, and who should be pressuring X-Bank and CCA to resolve this.
And who said that they couldn't put up the kind of diplomatic infrastructure to accommodate heads of state at the time that Christie was scheduled to go. And so Christie says he didn't go because the protocols were not properly put in place for them to either travel here or for him to travel there.
David did kill Goliath, and I'm coming home and I'm taking my land. Now do I have your attention?
Then his Meridian will be almost half right when he made that crazy statement that the government is taking and trying to nationalize private investors' property.
Could you imagine, Steve, let's just try this. There's a $3.5 billion development going on anywhere in North America.
Mm-hmm.
And these North American fellas were smart, and they established some holding companies in the Bahamas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some stuff hit the fan,
mm-hmm.
and the fellas came to NASA and decided that they was going to wind up $3.5 billion of development on the Las Vegas, Nevada Strip. And that the U.S. court said, you know what? They got 10,000 people waiting for employment in there. All the unions all lined up, and everybody ready to go. The building is almost finished. And we're going to wind it up in the Bahamas. And the U.S. courts are going to say, oh, we bow to the jurisdiction of the Bahamas. And that asset is sitting over there. Come on.
Mm.
It isn't going to happen. And they shouldn't expect that to happen here. They should not even dream that that's going to happen here.
But maybe some people who we consider to be emotional were right all along that, you know, these guys just simply took the Bahamas for granted. You see, and I see a lot of people writing a lot of stuff in the newspapers, John. And a lot of them are foreign people. Not that I am xenophobic, not at all. And I respect a lot of them who are writing because I know, and they write very well, okay? And what they write is humorous and still serious and, you know, and gets your attention. But really, the bottom line, as the base of all that they're writing, tells me one thing, that they don't really believe in behemoths. That's why when you said what you said, I said, where's the confidence in us? There's no real confidence that we can do these things that we know that we can. At least, and while I believe that we have it as a nationalist, I think that we can do it. There are people who are in strategic places in this country, John, who have the pen in our newspapers and in our media, who are basically writing along the lines that these people, you have to watch them. They need supervision. They're at an elementary level. Don't you dare let this big money escape us. We have to bring in the jurisdiction under ours and endorse it for this to work. They're saying that unashamedly.
Steve, what the sadness is, though, you see, one thing I'm going to do is be honest. They are writing that way because they are able to do so from precedent.
Yes, that's correct.
From precedent.
Yeah.
They're not pulling this out of the sky, you know.
Mm-hmm.
How long? I heard you say it the other day on the radio, CLECO.
Yeah.
How long we've been trying to figure that out?
Yeah.
Okay.
7, 8 years now.
Heading into 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got some other liquidations that have been going on longer than that. Okay? So they're looking at our court precedent. We have cases that were going through the Supreme Court for 25 years, land disputes.
Yeah. The thing with the Methodist Church.
Methodist Church, Awak Homes in Pinewood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So they're sitting there, they're looking at it. And they're saying, if we leave this to you, the historical precedent suggests that this will not be resolved.
This is no time for bravado, believing that let's express some confidence in them and see what they do. We don't take chances with $3.5
billion.
I get you.
Okay, and a multi-jurisdictional matter that has ramifications all over the world. Okay, so I understand where they're coming from, but there again, as I say, as a nationalist, when the net result, the effect, positive or negative, is going to be here, we need to stand up and we need to deal with this. We need to be mature enough to address ourselves to this. And again, Steve, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be this way. But where do our courts end up? All right.
Privy Council.
Okay. So even them who are spouting, they need to stop. What we need to do is to see that the Attorney General's mission of swift justice needs to be seen in this. They need to make sure this matter is pushed aggressively, that the judge gives them very short timelines to have all the information so that he can get to his position, his level quickly. Then this will go through the Court of Appeal and get to the Privy Council, where it will ultimately be ruled on. And
that
quickly.
can take some time. People say it can be quick. People say that there's...
No, that can't take some time. That's what I'm saying. That can't take some time.
Why not, John?
This matter will not go to the back of the line in the cases that are...
Like this?
No way.
This particular case, it can't go to the back of the line.
No way. No way.
Has to be a priority.
More than a priority.
Who decides that? Who clears the books for that?
The Chief Justice clears the way.
I appreciate that. Let me read some other text before we end the day. This one says, the smoking gun that separate meetings were held in China because top Chinese officials don't negotiate with females. It's tradition. Thus, the speedy return of our delegation, blindsiding the Ismaili group, left China. That's interesting. This one says, why is there no ambassador to China from the Bahamas as yet? This one says, the answer to your concern, Steve, is why do you think President Barack Obama opened up Cuba? We're in bed with the Chinese. This one says, a lesson...
Come on. Cuba has been in bed with the Chinese for 30, 40 years. And that I had to make mention of that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they poked Cuba. One of the things that I have been saying since I sat with you first is that Cuba is coming. I've been saying that to you, Steve, for a year. Cuba is coming, that we should prepare, that we should take our banking expertise, we should take our tourism expertise, we should be in Cuba, we should be ushering in the Cuban revolution, new revolution. Our Chamber of Commerce has just signed a bilateral agreement with the Cuban Chamber of Commerce. Again, finally, Steve, people like Edison Sumner, people like Gowinbo, these are young 40-somethings who are not waiting on anybody. They're not waiting on the government to figure it out, because government should be down there. So our businessmen have gone down there to start these processes, to make sure that we are not left out, that we are in fact able to lead the way in this. And so if the private sector has stepped across, then I say kudos to them, and more than kudos, good going on them.
Here's something else. As a lesson in history, my dear boy John, the Canadians wanted to buy the Bahamas from the Brits in the 1800s because of a race outlook, because of a racist outlook. The Crown said no, but allowed the Canadians to, what this is? MWN, us through her banks. That's supposed to be owned.
Yep.
To own us through her banks, thus this minimal American interest in the Bahamas. Another one says, Steve, can more than one person have an idea for how a major development such as Bahama can be successful? Yeah. I guess this question is based upon how do you wind up and exclude the man who is the visionary of Bahama Ismailian. So this person says, Steve, can more than one person have an idea for how a major development such as Bahama can be successful? I suppose yes, eh?
Yes, most definitely.
Can your mommy born a prime minister? Yes. Can mine? Yes.
You know, Donald Trump couldn't turn resorts. Saul Kirshner made it the success, and Condé Nast #1 for 10 years in a row.
My Lord.
You know?
This one says the Bahamas is at its broken point. Our leaders have no answers. That's a comment. Another one says, happy to hear Mr. Bostwick today. Let him know we are praying for him. And that's how we look today with text messages up to this point. The others will be posted on our Facebook page tonight. John, it is always good when you stop in and we can look at some of the things. But there's no real traction going here other than we have to wait and see how these things will play out in courts. And the big boys, the big lawyers the big wigs are in town trying to see when they can muster. We know your position. We say no to this whole thing of endorsing this particular bankruptcy filing. And I say, if the whole idea, this tactical move of Christie, I'll call it that for the moment, if this tactical move of Christie does not work as far as this winding up thing, then I don't know where we would be. Where do you suppose we'd be at the end of the day?
I think again, I think he's not using his biggest weapon. They are whispering it, and to that extent, I don't fully agree with Mr. Diagla in the sense that the government is still hedging. The government is still hedging. The winding up is an apparently very aggressive move, but I think that that's you're within range shot across the bow, because there is an argument to be had at law about whether or not the winding up petition is going to be successful or not. I don't know if there's an argument to be had at law about whether they can take back that land or not. And if the government was really playing brinksmanship and hard ball, like you say, hard talk, that is a move they would be moving aggressively towards and filing papers towards without no jokes. That is not a game. And so I think the government is still, they've threatened it, they've talked it, but that hasn't happened yet. And once that happens, Steve, I think that everybody will come to the table with a view to solving this situation, because they'd have no choice. They really would have no choice.
I appreciate it. John Bostic with me today at 7:50, and we stop here on Hard Copy, and we're going to watch this with interest, right, John? And
Steve, my comment is that the government is still watching, and I think they are doing the right thing at this point, because they are coming hard. They haven't dropped the hammer, all right? And in dropping the hammer, that's when the government is no longer watching with interest. That is when the government has now taken control of the process. And that's a big difference.
And that's why the nationalist, John, says, play the card that you got, the real card.
Play the real card.
Tell them, come, fellas, sit down and deal with this today.
That's right.
If you don't, give me back my land and check y'all later. Check y'all on the rebound.
That's it.
Can it happen?
That's it.
We'll see. Let's go home, Nathan. John Bostic has been my special guest of interest here on Hard Copy. We thank him so much, as always. And, of course, Hard Copy has been brought to you by the folks who make it happen every day. The National Art Gallery, Commonwealth Bail Bonds, Bank of the Bahamas, the Bank of Solutions, BTC Every Day, new Samsung S6, now available on the market. Super Value, the all-famous supermarkets of the McKinney Media Group. RBC, Visa, get it now. Ministry of Tourism, Junkanoo Summer Festival every Saturday. And soon in August, Goombay Summer Festival every Friday. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue, New Oriental Laundry. 9 locations. Boy, they keep you looking good. Grace Academy, number 1, Chester Close. You want that education? You want to call Grace Academy, number 1, Chester's Close. Also, Ron's Electric Motors. Prime Immigration Services, Sky Bahamas. Super Wash, Seafowl, Sunburst Paints, Commonwealth Bank, Summer Madness, Executive Printers, Henry F. Store, and the Blue Ultra Pure Drinking Water, the official water of Hard Copy. That's our show for tonight. God willing, we'll be back here tomorrow. Remember now, if it's 5 o'clock, it is Hard Copy.
This is Peace Radio After Dark.